If you're trying to come up with an excuse of why the Arizona Cardinals aren't the top team in the NFL right now, stop. Don't waste your time. The Arizona Cardinals improved to 6-0. They crushed the Cleveland Browns on the road, and the Cardinals were undermanned. They were the undermanned team going into this game. We're breaking it all down. It's Bo Brock. It's Alex Clancy. It's all right here. Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What an unbelievable way to start the week for the sixth straight time. The Arizona Cardinals improved to 6-0, 37-14. Arizona Cardinals all over the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, it's what we expected for them without their head coach, Kliff Kingsbury, without arguably their best rusher, Chandler Jones, without the spine, as Alex Clancy calls it, of their offensive line, and Rodney Hudson, who's now on IR, gone for the next 3 weeks or so, without Zach Allen. The list goes on and on and on. Who's going to call the plays? It doesn't matter. This Arizona Cardinals team is special.
Yeah, they are. Well put, Bo. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like we talked about a lot of things to be worried about ahead of Sunday's game. Myles Garrett in the pass rush, Jadeveon Clowney without Rodney Hudson there. The rush attack averaging 187 total yards between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, and then Nick Chubb is out. They scored 12 total touchdowns between the two of them through 5 weeks. On and on and on. Odell Beckham still needing respect, even though he's a shell of what he was when he was in New York, and the number 1 and number 2 option for Eli Manning. Throw the book out. What the hell happened? It happened again. Kyler Murray was impeccable. We'll talk about it. Chase Edmonds and James Conner together were impeccable, namely the latter in the second half, something that I had been talking about, the Cardinals needing a LeGarrette Blount type guy in the exact same situation that they found themselves in today, where you hand it off to them and they run the clock out. You get first downs, and magically that happened. The stat of the night, and we'll talk about everything, Cardinals were on the field for 34 minutes. 4 extra minutes over the split 50-50 time. If you're on the field for 34 minutes, you're going to win every single game. That means your offense is on the field for 34 minutes a game. They played, they went on the road without their head coach, didn't really know who was playing calls. Colt McCoy was in the room. He was going to help with playing. It just worked. And luckily the defense put the offense again in a position to succeed myriad times like they had earlier in the season.
I mean, they were basically the end of Varsity Blues, the movie, with your quarterbacks, your current quarterbacks making the calls. Kliff Kingsbury wasn't taken out because he was a jerk. He was taken out from, of course, a positive test. And, Colt McCoy's helping out with the play calling. You've got Vance Joseph, and you got your guy Jeff Rogers, a special teams coordinator. They're acting as your head coach. And it was a collective effort, and it was special. Everything that went down on Sunday, sure, there's a little bit stagnant. At the end of the first half, you had the Hail Mary at the end for the Browns that they connect on to cut into the lead. They go to halftime into the locker room down 23-14, and the Cardinals come out in the second half, and it was an impressive offensive drive. They get shut down, and the Browns offense comes back onto the field. And then what happens, this Cardinals defense continues to do what they've done for what they've done for the entire season, maybe with the exception of the game against the Minnesota Vikings. They've just completely answered the bell and been just a force and got the ball back into the Arizona Cardinals offense's hands. And then that's when they were kind of extend this lead, this game away, and then kind of get into that take the air out of the football, run the clock game that you mentioned with James Conner. It was just an impressive effort, especially when considered everybody who was out for this game.
Yeah, and you look at just the first half, the first 2 drives were 9.5 minutes total. That's over half of a quarter where they're on the field for 2 drives and they both end in touchdowns. That's not something we've seen from the Cardinals. It's usually quick hit, or the defense, like the third drive, was off an interception or a fumble. I was off a fumble that ended in a field goal in under a minute. But and then the interception, field goal, the Cardinals scored, as Bo mentioned, on every drive in the first half. You're going to win. You're going to win a lot of games if that happens. So, I mean, it's just, dude, Bo, we talk about it. We talk about this team every day. It's like nothing can surprise you. They've won every way. They've won every way you can win.
Yeah.
They were down 21-3 against Minnesota, I think. They were down a bunch against Minnesota. They came back and won. Yeah. They played super ugly. That's right, because they missed extra point. They played super ugly against San Francisco. They won that game. They go on the road. Luckily, it was in the afternoon time slot, and they win against a team that was a fourth down stop away from potentially beating Kansas City in the playoffs last year to go to the AFC Championship game. Like, they've played everywhere. They blew out an AFC champion opponent in Tennessee in week 1. Like, they've won in every way possible, and nothing really should surprise you anymore, especially with week 7 coming up with Houston coming into town.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on top of that, San Francisco comes and gives them a tough, as far as defensive output. San Francisco's defense played very well, and the Arizona Cardinals won ugly last week. We talked about that for a long time. And then the Arizona Cardinals faced probably the most adversity that they faced all season long with all those guys out. And, I saw a team out there that out of the gates came out hyper-focused. They focused on what the game plan was. We heard that Kliff Kingsbury was going to script a ton of plays, and the collective effort was Herculean, and it was on point, and the Arizona Cardinals dominated a good team, a team that scared at least these hosts right here, Bo and Alex, and a lot of the fan base, and we knew what they were capable of, and the Arizona Cardinals right out of the gates took them out of that game plan and completely just dismantled this Browns team.
Yeah, I mean, it shows how important Nick Chubb is to the team. I mean, it shows how important it is to establish the run for this team, for everything else to happen. And say what you want about Baker Mayfield, shut it with him. The dude ripped his shoulder off his body. He doesn't miss a play. He comes back in. He's the leader of that team. Sure, he's not an absolute elite quarterback. He's not the first quarterback that needs a run game to be excellent. But when he has time, whether it be behind the line of scrimmage with good protection, they're missing both their guards today, or both their tackles or both their guards. I can't remember. One of them. I think it was both their tackles. Or if he has time rolling out, the guy is a surgeon with the football. Like, we saw some stuff today where it's like, oh man, they could definitely come back with Baker at the helm, and the Cardinals just, they were able to turn him over because Baker has a problem with turning the ball over.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it's as far as competitiveness, it'd be tough to find any quarterback in the league that competitive. But, Tom Brady, of course, the top. But him coming out there and competing and wanting to play, and, injuries, whatever it may be, Baker Mayfield, tip of the cap. But at the same time, the Browns were down. They had players kind of falling by the wayside throughout the game. We saw Kareem Hunt exit this contest. You can say what you want about the penalties. I don't think the penalties, I saw a lot of Browns people chirping about the penalties early on, but look, you can't put your hands on wide receivers. You can't touch the quarterback. We know that. If you don't know that yet, welcome to watching the NFL. That's just how it goes. I don't know what to tell you. It works both ways. It just didn't work in your favor today.
Well, and luckily for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, I mean, he flails, like, he doesn't flail. He's smaller than a 6'7" defensive tackle. Okay, so maybe sometimes when he gets pushed, there's a little bit more movement in his body, which is yielded. Now, having said that, I was even like, man, the Cardinals are getting some calls today.
Sure.
Like, the Cardinals are like DeAndre Hopkins. That's what happens when you throw him the ball. Yeah, he's the best receiver in the NFL. Yeah. They get calls. They get calls, and maybe they shouldn't. He gets more offensive pass interference calls than any wide receiver in the NFL because he pushes off more than anybody, but that's fine. Look at what he did today. And they get calls. I mean, that's what's going to happen. You have better players, you get more calls.
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions coming off of this victory. Good questions to ask. And, who stepped up of the Arizona Cardinals top players, who stepped up the most in the just ton of absences, and as well, what does this mean for this group potentially going forward? Vance Joseph, very impressive. His defense continues to be one of the top groups in the NFL. Does he become kind of another candidate this offseason when the coaching carousel cranks back up? We'll get into that conversation and how the Cardinals looked without Kliff Kingsbury. Is that, a testament to Kliff putting the team in a good spot? Is it an indictment on K2? We'll get into that conversation. We're having it with you guys online as well at Locked On AZCards, at Clancy's Corner, and at BOBRACK, Bob Brack, Bo Brock. Follow me. And we appreciate everybody chiming in, and we appreciate you making us your first listen. Also wanted to tell you about DirecTV Stream. It's a simple way to get all the entertainment you love in one place without the hassle. DirecTV Stream brings you your live TV, on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports like the Cardinals game and then also stream a movie or one of your TV shows that you're binge watching right now. And the best part, there's no annual contract. Stop waiting to get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Recording right after an Arizona Cardinals victory. That's what we do each and every Sunday. Also, each and every Sunday, or game day, I should say, we're going live at halftime. We appreciate everybody that tuned in. We see the numbers go up. We appreciate each and every one of you that tunes in, jumps into the conversation in the chat. That's the best part of our week, just getting to kind of converse with everybody. Otherwise, we're premiering our YouTube episodes each and every morning at 10 a.m., aside from our post-game episode, which goes up shortly after the contest. Brack, Alex Clancy hanging out with you. And the Arizona Cardinals are now 6-0. 72 Dolphins can continue to keep that champagne on ice that they pop after the last undefeated team suffers their first loss of the NFL season. And the Arizona Cardinals up next have the Houston Texans. And then after that, they've got the Thursday night game against the Green Bay Packers. And then you got another game against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, the sky's the limit as far as what this team could do within the first 10, 12 games of this season, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, this is the stretch. They have 3 home games in 4 games. They have 3 of the next 4 at home, which is the most favorable stretch regarding home games clustered up that they're going to see this season. The fact that they're 4-0 on the road already this year, Bo, that's 1 more win than the 2018 season altogether. That's 1 less win than the 2019 season altogether. Like, what they're doing on the road now at this point, until we get deeper downward, like, hopefully, this still continues and there's aren't any injuries, knock on wood, where it's like you're looking at opponent and not if it's at home or on the road. Because the Cardinals are winning games on the road. The most difficult teams that they've played have all been road games, aside from Jacksonville. They went on the road against the Rams. They went on the road against Kansas City. Tennessee. They went on the road against Cleveland. I mean, they get Green Bay at home. That's their toughest opponent for the rest of the season, Bo. They're going to have to go on the road to play the Bears, which is going to be difficult, and they're going to have to play just because it's Soldier Field and it's the Bears and they play ugly, and we'll see what the Cardinals are made of there with Khalil Mack on the other side of the line. And then they go to Dallas, which may be the game of the year, which if both teams are still winning, that's a flex-worthy game, especially because, it's Jerry Jones.
It's wins against teams like the Titans on the road and wins against teams like the Rams on the road. And it's wins against teams against the Cleveland Browns on the road, where the Arizona Cardinals, at least before the season begins, are underdogs. They're not favoring those games. They're not expected to win. I hear from the homers that want to pick the Cardinals in each and every game, more realistic than that. But when you get W's in games like that, it's when a good season can transform into something more. And, you can go from being a fringe playoff team, 7, 8 wins, to double-digit victories. You get, sprinkled in there a victory at home because Greg Joseph can't connect from 37 yards. That's where you can start putting up just pretty eye-popping amounts of wins. Like the Arizona Cardinals went from probably being a 9 to 10 win team to start the season, so now we're looking at 12, maybe 13 wins this year, which is pretty crazy with the extra game. Kyler Murray.
And, just real quick, before we move on, so sorry. So we talk about, and we did our Locked On Now, the biggest, the star from this game, maybe it's Max Garcia. I mean, except for the one snap that turned into a touchdown. So for fantasy football owners, gave Kyler a little extra room to throw the touchdown pass to the back of the end zone to Christian Kirk. You didn't think his name wasn't mentioned besides that play, which means during offensive linemen, for that, their job, if they're not mentioned, that means they're doing their job at least adequately above average. And that's all you wanted from him. So you got to give him a shout out at this point also. Especially Ronnie Hudson going to the IR. Now they're starting to get a little momentum. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that Max, there was a couple suspect snaps in that game. And I thought that was actually the key. There was 3 drives in a row where the offense seemed real stagnant. And, two of those drives were sullied by a bad snap, negative yards. And then the next one was a sack to open up the second half that was taken by Kyler Murray, where maybe he could have thrown the ball away. I think he could have and got negative yards. And they just torpedoed their chance to move the ball or get, score a touchdown as far as the last two drives of the first half are concerned. So, but at the end of the day, the Arizona Cardinals roll in this one. Kyler Murray throws 4 touchdown passes. He has now 14 on the season. He did have a rushing touchdown that was negated by penalty. I think it was Josh Jones that got called for that one. You look at the rushing numbers, James Conner, your boy, 16 carries, 71 yards. You had Christian Kirk, 75 yards, a touchdown. AJ Green, his number called a ton of times in the second half. 5 catches, 79 yards and a touchdown. And then DeAndre Hopkins, 3 catches, 55 yards. 2 of his 3 catches were in the end zone. One of them, how did the Browns not know that DeAndre Hopkins is on the field?
I don't know.
That was the game sealer.
Yeah,
that was
and James Conner. We didn't see Did we see Chase Edmonds in the second half running the ball? At least
I
not in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it wasn't not a lot of
James Conner was just the world beater. Man, him and tell me AJ Green's washed. Please. Please do it. Please do it. And listen, it's a lot easier for him to be the wide receiver 2 at this point in his career, for sure. How's Julio Jones doing?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's
in Tennessee. He can't stay on the field, and they're the same age. So tell me that AJ Green is washed and Julio Jones is the better of the 2. Please continue to tell me that. It's just like the dude just knows how to play football. He knows how to get open, and he knows how to be 6'4" because he has been for his whole adult life. And the fact that he can run to the back pylon and Kyler Murray throws this marshmallow just into his hands just for a fun touchdown at the end of the game. This is what you do with young quarterbacks. You find playmakers and you put them around him. And look at how it's elevated everything. AJ Green is so important to this offense, even if it's not the numbers, because it opens everything up for Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore. I mean, what's going to happen when Zach Ertz comes in? And these guys none of them have egos, which is the best part of all of this. It doesn't matter. Everybody wants to win.
Well, I mean, especially when you look at there's a, big enough spoon to feed all these mouths. I mean, it really is. Yeah. I mean, you've got 10 catches between Kirk and Green. You've got DeAndre Hopkins finding the end zone twice. You've got Rondale Moore, who they're incorporating in the offense. I know he had a quiet day, but he had his number call. I mean, he had 3 rushes. He had 3 catches. I mean, everybody's getting their hands on the ball because you're playing the high, the high volume offense, and the defense is putting the ball in the offense's hands. And that brings up, kind of our next point. And this is a defense that once again was nails on 4th down. They gave up 1 conversion out of 4 attempts. Last week, I think it was 1 for 5 from the Niners. You look at the last 2 weeks, their teams are 2 for 9. That's just incredible. The ability to make stops on 4th down. Vance Joseph was kind of your co-head coach on Sunday with Jeff Rodgers. We talked about it a little bit, but I think this is going to become a serious conversation. When that coaching carousel kicks back up, Vance Joseph is going to have a couple interviews to kind of, I don't know if he's going to tag team it with Jeff Rodgers, like Step Brothers, or are they going to, I don't know how they're going to do it, but Vance Joseph continues to improve it. Yeah, I'm going to figure out this pan thing. As far as, his resume is getting a boost. And if it's a team,
yeah. Oh, and just really quick, we gotta put a button on this, Bo. Yeah. You hammering the over of 1.5 4th down conversions.
Oh,
there were 2.
No, there was 1, wasn't there?
No, there was 2. I think the Cardinals went for it on 4th and 2 at Cleveland's 25 at the end of the game to clinch it.
Okay, we got it. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I thought it was a bad beat because Odell Beckham dropped that ball. I apologize. Well, there you go.
The only bad beat about that is how much money they gave him. So with Vance Joseph, it's interesting. And we're going to temper this. This is more of an offseason conversation, but when your team is 6-0 that you're covering, you have a little luxury to talk about things that, the Cardinals scored more points. Cool. There's only so much you can talk about. Vance Joseph needs to be retained as a defensive coordinator. And it's not like an original thing. How long has Josh McDaniels been an offensive coordinator for? Sometimes people, and it's funny, he flamed out in Denver also. Not everybody that's a good coach is fit to be a good head coach. And I don't know why we're forcing this on people. Like, look at how great Gus Bradley's done as a defensive coordinator in different spots. Ken Wisenhunt for a long time. Like, you don't have to be a head coach just because you had a good couple years as a DC and hopefully the Cardinals can pay him and keep him here in perpetuity to be the assistant head coach to Kliff Kingsbury.
You know, like is Vance Joseph, if the Raiders come calling and he's looking at Derek Carr, who's got some pretty nice statistics this season, or you're looking at the New York Giants potentially coming calling,
Ugh.
or I don't know whoever.
Jacksonville?
Yeah, well, I mean, at least Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, look, I'm not going to relive my Denver days by not having a quarterback. I think it's pretty safe to say Trevor Lawrence will be successful at some point. But if the Giants, they don't have any like long-term solution at quarterback, and you don't know what's going to happen with the Raiders. Like if those types of teams come, I think Vance Joseph has the luxury of saying, I'm gonna wait for a better opportunity. I know what it's like without having the best.
I see what you mean.
The most important position taken care of.
Yeah, you know, I mean, because as important as running it back with these guys that they've signed in the offseason, you know, barring any sort of, you know, blow up and the Cardinals not make the play, you know, something crazy happening, bring it like Vance Joseph he was the coach of the year last year in the Cardinals coaching room after what happened when Chandler Jones went down and that defense got better. You know, he was the coach of the year last year. So why not? I don't know. If it's a matter of money, there's a lot worse places to live than Arizona. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, and if they can figure, I don't know. I mean, again, we're going to talk about this a lot, but just celebrate the win. And he did a great job as the front leader of the coaching group that took care of it. Sean Kugler did a great job. I mean, it was great. Who knows how much Colt McCoy had to say about it, but you tweeted out, you had a really good tweet. I know we got to go to break here. Zach Ertz and Colt McCoy standing next to each other, both with earpieces in, you know, listening to play calling. It's like, man, this is an adult grown up team now.
Yeah, it wasn't.
They got all the adults in all the right places.
He wasn't just cheerleading on the sidelines for his new squad. I mean, he's ready. He was listening to the play calls, and he
was there. He didn't have to be there.
Right.
Played a game on Thursday for a different team.
I mean, think about him. I saw a couple formations where it's like Demetrius Harris in the backfield. It's just put Ertz. Can't wait to see Ertz there.
Yeah,
coming out, making catches in the red zone. And in the red zone offense, I think looked the last 2 weeks. I think there's room for improvement for the red zone offense for the Arizona Cardinals. If you're looking for ways to kind of maybe nitpick and places for improvement, I think that the red zone offense the last 2 weeks, it hasn't been as impressive as it was the previous couple weeks. And that's, that's pretty nice. I mean, as far as attempts and touchdowns, it was 4 for 7. So you can certainly improve just over 50% in that area. But, the stars came out. You got a big effort from your quarterback, Kyler Murray. You got a big effort from J.J. Watt on the defensive side of the football. Let's actually get into that. Let's get more into this defensive effort. Marcus Golden, Jordan Hicks, your veteran defensive players stepped up big time in this game. We'll get into that before we wrap up here on Locked On Cardinals. Got to tell you about the protein bar that is basically the Cardinals equivalent, the best right now on the market. It's Built Bar. Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors that you can always rely upon. If you haven't tried any, I suggest getting the mix box, figure out which flavor you like the best, and then go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, save yourself 15% on your next order. 9 delicious flavors. Here are a couple for you. Coconut, almond, cherry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel. Find one that you like because you're not going to cut any corners nutrition-wise. 17 grams of protein in most of the bars, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and just 4 grams of net carbs. As I said, use the promo code LOCK15 when you go to Built.com and save yourself 15%. That's LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com.
So I remember a time where before today, the Cardinals were a 3-point underdog, upwards of 3.5-point underdog going into Cleveland. The Cardinals, I don't know if you know this, Bo, they won by, they covered and they won outright. But, if you had on that side, or if you didn't wager on it, you should go to betonline.ag for next time because betonline.ag is back and better than ever. Like the new interface and site, like it's incredible, super streamlined. They have more odds, props, and contests than ever before. Go to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using promo code Locked On. Again, go to the website or use your mobile device to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with promo code Locked On. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Bo,
some crazy stats from both Alex and myself before we get out of here. Also, you're getting an extra segment today. It's not Alex and myself. It's actually our Locked On NFL Insider, Isaiah Stanback, a former Super Bowl champion. He's going to give his thoughts on the Zach Ertz acquisition. Real quick, spread is out. Early spread. State Farm Stadium, Arizona Cardinals hosting the Houston Texans. Do you care at all to give a guess on what the spread is?
No. 13.
16.
Is Tom Brady with the Patriots the quarterback of the Cardinals?
16-point favorites. The Arizona Cardinals are over the Houston Texans.
Yowza.
Week 7 of the NFL season as they gear up and try to go for 7-0. Houston got absolutely destroyed on Sunday by the Indianapolis Colts 31-3. 16 points. I mean, that's the whole point is to kind of conjure up action. And right. I think that's trying to get Texans bettors to maybe throw some check. It was like, couldn't be that bad. 16 points early spread. We'll see that.
I mean, we'll see if Chandler Jones comes back. We'll see. Yeah. Well, Rodney Hudson obviously isn't, but like this team won a game before. I mean, Tyler Taylor got hurt. So, I mean, they won week 1, right? They beat Jacksonville in week 1. Yeah. And then it's just kind of been rough sledding since then. As bad as the Cardinals were in 2018, they weren't this bad.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is bad. This is relegated to out of the Premier League bad. You know, so Texans, but this is a perfect time. This, you know, they're a perfect opponent to play if you've got a short week against Green Bay coming up on Thursday Night Football. It's a when things happen for magical runs, things like this happen. You never wish upon injuries. You never wish anything like that. But at this point, Greg Joseph misses a field goal. Cardinals win. Okay. Nick Chubb is out today. Kareem Hunt gets hurt. Odell Beckham gets hurt. You never wish injuries on anybody, but it happened when the Cardinals were playing them. So it made their job a little bit easier to score more points than the opposing team. And then you get Houston at home, just so happens to be right before the Thursday night game. The only time the Cardinals play back-to-back home games this year is Texans on Sunday, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers here Thursday night. And then you go with Trey Lance. Who knows if Russell Wilson's going to be back? Then you have Carolina. Like the next 6 weeks, if the Cardinals win in Thursday night, they could be 12-0 through 12 weeks. This isn't a joke anymore. Like, it's a legitimate thing where the Cardinals will be favored in the majority of the games they play through 12 weeks, through week 12, from now to week 12. They might even be favored against Green Bay.
Yeah, it's miraculous that the Arizona Cardinals, I mean, and you've got a stat, I've got a stat for you. The Arizona Cardinals haven't trailed in the football game since 11:29 in the second quarter of week 4.
That's better than mine. That's bonkers. Say that again.
The Arizona Cardinals haven't trailed in a football game since 11:29 left in the second quarter of week 4 of this season against the Rams. So the Rams go up 10-7, and then Kyler Murray, with 10:44 left in the second quarter in the first half, he hits Max Williams for the touchdown, and they haven't looked back.
What's mine? The Cardinals, since 2000, the Cardinals have not eclipsed 6 wins in a season 10 times, and they're 6-0 this year. So I think yours is better. I think yours is better.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, Brack, Alex,
it has to do with the season.
Yeah, Locked On Cardinals. Follow on Twitter at Locked On AZCards. This defense has shown up all but 1 week. I think you can make that case. You know, Minnesota was tough. 33 points. They win 34-33. But the rest of the weeks, and I feel like the last 2 weeks, the defense has been that stable, reliable group that when you need big plays, they've pulled them off. And, you know, big testament. I know J.J. Watt, he was close to a couple, you know, getting his first sack. Did he get his first sack today? I know he took down.
I don't know if they gave that to him or not. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But, I mean, he lived in the backfield.
As far as sacks go, you had 2 from Jordan Hicks. You had 2 from Golden. Yes, J.J. Watt was credited with a sack.
He got one.
Strip sack on that one. and his first sack as a Cardinal. And, he does a lot of things that don't show up in the box score. And it proved to do that. But you saw from those veterans, the three I just mentioned, Marcus Golden, Jordan Hicks, and J.J. Watt, they just showed up to play today. And I think it's for the second time in 2 straight seasons where Chandler Jones, he went out for the rest of the season last year after 5 games, and you saw an inspired effort, and you saw bigger sack numbers. They had 5 today. And last year they had 3 sacks in the game after Chandler Jones was out. You're seeing this group focus in and start to get after the quarterback again. It's just coming together. How funny was it too? Is laugh out loud funny in the game where this Isaiah Simmons continues to be a beast, where Baker Mayfield calls Peoples-Jones to pick up Isaiah Simmons in a red zone situation, and Isaiah Simmons makes quick work of the poor wide receiver assigned to block him and gets the tackle on that play. He
tackles Kareem Hunt with like one hand. It's like bing bonk. Wait, you're supposed to block me? You didn't listen to your quarterback, sir. I mean, when you look at a common misconception is veteran means old and slow. Still effective, but old and slow. Tell me Jordan Hicks isn't 75% of what he was when they signed him. He got in the backfield quick. He was never the fastest guy. That's not his job. He's still one of the best tacklers in the league when given the opportunity. J.J. Watt, A.J. Green, Marcus Golden was a great... They flew a 6th-round pick to New York for him, and he's been not only in the locker room, on the field, he's been an integral part of this pass rush. As you mentioned, when Chandler Jones went out, he was one of the inspired bunch. As of now, I don't know, barring any sort of injury or with the injuries they have sustained now with Rodney Hudson, I don't know where the weakness is on this team. I still would say secondary just by default because they're young and unproven. Robert Alford got truck stick today by Donovan Peoples-Jones, which was a little embarrassing. We didn't have a pick. Yeah. They look fine. Like, that patchwork looks the best version of patchwork, if that's what they were looking for with Malcolm Butler retiring. I don't know, man. It's a hell of a roster.
It is. And I think that it's been a slow rise to it. I think that they had to have some necessary learning curves and took their lumps. Like, the play calling wasn't perfect from, week 1 to week, obviously struggled in week 5, but it's slowly but surely getting better and dialing in. And again, another big number from this offense. And then also this defense is figuring itself out. This secondary is coming in on its own, and this pass rush. You're right. I mean, as far as weaknesses, this Cardinals team is slowly turning into one of the more complete teams, if not the most complete team in the NFL right now, which I think would shock a ton of people if you were to jump in a DeLorean and gun it to 88 and go back before the season started.
Who needs a dime machine? I'll say it every time. I don't care. I will say it every single time.
I know, but
that is veteran Paul Rudd right there. I mean, that is J.J. Watt in the backfield. Who needs a dime machine? And this is one thing that is going to blow your mind momentarily, because I just realized this. Aside from the Hail Mary, Cleveland didn't score a point after 4 minutes left in the second quarter.
Stupid. Yeah, they shut him out in the second half. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but shutouts don't happen. Like, even with, it was with the Rams, they ended up with a 20 burger. It was really only 13 because it was a throwaway touchdown at the end. The San Francisco game was probably the closest because there weren't that many points scored. So one thing happens one way or the other towards the end of a game, a fumble or anything, and San Francisco come back, return it, whatever. But, I mean, the Cardinals haven't played like a close game since Minnesota. That's the only close game they played this year.
Yeah. I mean, San Francisco, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it was tight at the end, but I don't think anybody was...
Where you thought they were going to lose.
It was 10-7, and then they were able to tack on DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray. They went to work, and they tacked on, and they did what they had to do. Point differential, there's only one team in the NFL better than the Arizona Cardinals. It's the Buffalo Bills.
Tampa Bay.
108.
Buffalo, yeah.
And the Arizona Cardinals are
8 points. Sweet Jesus.
85. It's pretty impressive. 85 point differential for the Arizona Cardinals, second in the NFL. They've won 6 straight out of the gates. they didn't have a mishap against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. It's your number one team in the NFL.
The NFC West is now a 2-team race, but it's really, it's going to be tight. Like up towards the top. We talked about this a little bit at halftime. Like Green Bay's still 5-1, Dallas is 5-1, Tampa Bay's 5-1, the Rams are 5-1. That's 4 teams with one. Like that's insane. That at this point through 6 weeks, there are 4 teams with still only 1 loss, and then Cardinals are the lone undefeated team in the NFC. That's 5 out of the 7 playoff teams. You can pretty much lock it up that those 5 are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
through 6 weeks. And that's bonkers.
It's nuts. Absolutely bonkers. We're just getting started for, following this game. We'll have our more collected thoughts as we always do on Tuesday's episode. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Locked On Arizona Cardinals. You're following along on Twitter. Just went over 900 Twitter follows. Thank you, everybody that follows us on social media at Locked On AZ Cards, at Clancy's Corner, at BOBRACK, me, Bo Brock. And, this is a fun season. This is an absolute blast. We're enjoying it. Hopefully you are as well. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Premiere Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's our next episode. Enjoy this bonus content. Isaiah Stanback, our Locked On NFL Insider, breaking down the Zach Ertz trade, because come Tuesday, Alex, we start breaking down this team with Zach Ertz in the offense against Houston, who's given up the most fantasy points to tight ends.
Woo! Ertz so good, baby. Ertz
man.
Good.
All right, guys, gals, thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you on Tuesday. Look for another episode coming up soon. Locked On Cardinals. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and Monday.
Welcome in. I'm Kanani Stevens with another Locked On Now Insider Report. We're joined by NFL Insider Isaiah Stanback, and we got to talk Eagles and Cardinals. Zach Ertz on the move. The 3-time Pro Bowler is heading to Arizona. Now, why did this trade come about at this point in the season for both these two teams, Isaiah?
Yeah, that's the question that everybody wants to know. But for the Arizona Cardinals, this makes a lot of sense. They lost their starting tight end in last week's game with a knee injury for the season. So this is a position that they needed to obviously upgrade. And when they looked around in the NFL, they found a guy in Zach Ertz who was available. So they pulled the trigger.
Obviously, Zach Ertz, he's spoken to the media since then. He knew about this trade before last night's game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. He said after the game, he was very emotional, crying in his locker. He was drafted by the Eagles. He wanted to remain there and do a long-term deal, but Philly was resistant to that. What's kind of their motivation? They didn't get a ton in return. I think they got a rookie defensive back and a 5th-round pick. So what are they trying to do right now? Is it just, kind of rebuild at this point?
Yeah, in the trade, just so everybody understands, they received the 6th-round draft pick from the Arizona, Tay Gowan, and as well as a 5th-round draft pick in 2022's draft. So, yeah, most people will look at that and say, that's not much for a 3-time Pro Bowler and an 8-year veteran in the form of tight end, Zach Ertz. But this made a lot of sense for them. Over the last few years, he's been splitting time with Dallas Goedert, and the reality is that he's a Carson Wentz guy. Him and Carson Wentz had a relationship just much like Tony Romo and Jason Witten did. So anybody can remember how tight that unit was. That's the type of relationship that he had with Carson Wentz. So when Wentz left, guess what? The relationship was gone. So Goddard has really become a guy that is really tied into Jalen Hurts. And they split time at about 56% of the snaps has went to Dallas Goedert versus Zach Ertz. So it was kind of the writing was on the wall.
And, as you mentioned, this was something they had talked about doing in the offseason. Obviously, that didn't get done. Now that they're 2-4, they made that move. But Ertz isn't exactly going to, a bad situation. The Cardinals are 5-0. Their offense is explosive, what they can do there. Kyler Murray looks like he's trying to be, MVP, put up all these crazy video game points. What kind of role can Ertz play in that system? Because obviously he'll be taking on, probably a decent amount of snaps for them. And then this is an offense that can do so many things.
Yeah, he's going into an amazing situation. Obviously, he won't be available for this first game of his trade. But Kliff Kingsbury is pretty much just eating his cake. He's eating his cake right now. He has all the weapons that he could ever hope for. He obviously has Kyler Murray. He picked up James Conner this offseason. He has him in the backfield. He has AJ Green, B Hop, and now you throw a Pro Bowl tight end into that mix. And all of a sudden, these guys were already doing really well, but now they have to be considered one of the most explosive offenses in not only in the NFC West, but also in the NFL.
They're still undefeated at this point. Obviously, I think they might be slight underdogs, but they're going to play Cleveland this week. Is Ertz a player? I mean, obviously, he's been in the same system for such a long time where he can come in and make an immediate impact because he's a veteran. He can play, kind of different roles.
Yeah, that's the thing when you have a versatile quarterback like Kyler Murray. He's not just simply dropping back and having to deliver the ball to his guys that have to run their exact routes correctly. They have to be in the right spots for these concepts. He's going to be a guy that can run and obviously make himself open. When Kyler Murray extends these plays, guess what? Zach Ertz can go ahead and find his way into these gaps of these zone coverages because teams can't play these guys man anymore. They now have a three-headed monster out there that have receiving abilities, and they have a quarterback who can obviously move the sticks with his feet as well. This is a very dangerous team, and Zach Ertz will have an immediate impact once he's allowed to play.
It's definitely going to be a good game this weekend. As far as the Eagles go, they dropped their game last night. Kind of, what are Eagles fans kind of holding on to at this point? Is the team in tank mode, or are they still trying to do something with, this young squad?
Yeah, this is a very difficult division right now. Obviously, these guys, everybody pretty much is looking up at the Dallas Cowboys with those guys sitting at the top of the NFC East. And it's hard to imagine that anybody's going to really be able to dethrone them. So the question does arise, what are the Philadelphia Eagles doing? From the fans' perspective, it looks as if they're tanking, but they still have a chance to go in there and hopefully get in and get a playoff spot if they can get things rolling, falling at the number 2 spot in the NFC East.
That's about it. So we'll have to kind of see how that goes. That division is always kind of up in the air, it seems like, even with the Cowboys playing as well as they have been playing. So that's it for this Locked On Now Insider Report. He's Isaiah. I'm Kainani. Thanks for joining us.